So what would you do if elected mayor to continue to reduce the crime rate in Miami Gardens?
So public safety is a perception as well, right? So if you don't feel safe, you're not safe. And so, I was at the poll today and I was talking to a resident and she said, I don't even like to go out and walk in the evenings and at night. So even as though you mentioned that the crime rate have been reduced, the perception of this resident is that it's still not safe. So right there, that is affecting her quality of life because that where we were has a beautiful walk path that she should be enjoying and so feel safe that she should. So this is again where I would want to work with our law enforcement, right? So we have our police chief who's very involved in bringing the community bringing law enforcement out into the community. And so trust is one of the main thing that we need to have our residents to be able to trust our law enforcement officers. And so in my research, I was looking at some other states and how they manage their law enforcement response. And so there's this where when you have a call for law enforcement to go out to provide, if someone feel that they're not safe, to interject a social program into it, right? That what it does is it provides, let's say, a perfect example, the recent shooting with the young lady that was killed. She called for help. And when she got there, whatever she was going through mentally or why she felt that she was not safe, she lost her life. And that was just unnecessary. So what I am looking to propose is to include more social workers, right, for certain responses. There's a study that was recently done. 1 in 5 Americans suffer from a mental health issue. So you put 5 of us in the room, 1 of us is dealing with, and it doesn't have to mean we're crazy, just could very well be we're dealing with anxiety or we're dealing with something that, we're going through at that minute. So when you call for law enforcement, law enforcement are trained a certain way. And so a lot of times it removes that social aspect of trying to identify, what are the social issues? This is not a criminal issue. This could be just a social issue. So having a social worker along with law enforcement to be able to respond can sometimes remove that criminal aspect or thought process from law enforcement. And so that is what I would like to look into, how to interject a program like that, how to get funding, work with our state legislators, because they're the ones who are responsible for bringing down funding into the city to see if we can bring in enough social workers to work with our law enforcement. So when there are certain calls for help, we can have social worker go out versus this is more of a dangerous crime. So our law enforcement will focus on that. And in my research, what I found was that some of those very same law enforcement were dealing with their own issues. And so as these social workers were there and they're trying to diffuse an issue, they're identifying and realizing that they're having their own issues that they're going through. So those are some of the things, the programs that I would like to look at, how to merge social services along with our law enforcement response to be, and that also bring a form of community trust. So now, a mother may be experiencing something with her child and she calls for help. Well, rather than having law enforcement who are trained from the criminal aspect, you now have a social worker who's there trying to talk to that mother and talk to that child and dealing with it that way. And now you have that trust of that parents now trusting law enforcement because they're not seeing that hardcore criminal response from law enforcement. And I believe once we start looking at the way our officers respond, it will then create a different perspective of our residents and now create trust between law enforcement and residents. And eventually will help to reduce crime and increase, that relationship between the both.